off we go.
All right. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening. We will be doing the new member training. I know you've received a lot of communications from me over the past couple of days or weeks, depending on when you joined the journal. So I understand that this is a lot of information that's kind of been thrown at you at once. So I completely understand that you're all probably having questions and perhaps confused and not understanding, what the next steps are. So that's kind of what we're here for tonight. So any questions that you have, you can feel free to just unmute or raise your hand, or if you want to type it in the chat. Dan, who's our editor-in-chief, will moderate the chat. He doesn't know that he is, but now he does. So if there's anything that I don't see, he can just let me know. But we will get started. So before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of everything, I just wanted to give everyone the opportunity to introduce themselves and welcome you to the journal. We're really excited to have you all here. And we're here to help you with any questions, concerns, issues that may arise at any point related to journal or otherwise. We're here for you professionally, personally, and academically as well. And just off the bat, no question is a bad question. I know that you'll hear that until, the day's end, but seriously, we really want to make sure that everyone fully understands their duties, responsibilities, and we'd rather you kind of ask what you may think to be a silly question than to submit something that may have not been done properly. And had you kind of just ask the question, we would have been able to mediate that. So just kind of keep that in mind. But before we kind of get into everything, I just wanted everyone to go around, say their name, their year, their legal interests. Some of our current staff is already on. I see Austin, Dan. I'm not sure if anyone else is. So I'm going to let the new members go first. And then the current volume 47 incumbents can introduce themselves. So I'm just going to call people out depending on where you are on my screen. So we'll start with Stephanie.
Hi, how's everyone doing? I'm Stephanie. I'm a rising 2L. My summer job is in a real estate investment and construction company. So a lot of reading contracts, which I like figuring out how to get us out of stuff, but we'll see where the law world takes me in the future.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. Nina.
Hey, everybody. I'm Nina Monzak. I'm a rising 3L. Good to be with you guys. My interests are kind of similar to Shira's: real estate, contracts, transactional stuff. I am currently working at this exclusive firm called My Dad's. And but I enjoy it very much, doing work like that. So yeah, I'm really glad to be here. Nice to see everybody.
Thanks, Nina. Megan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan, also a rising 3L. I currently work for a fintech company in New York, and I really love it. It focuses on security law, banking law. I work in the legal and compliance department. So again, a lot of contracts, a lot of fund formation contracts, which I really love. Hopefully I'll work full-time or I'll get an offer at the end of the summer, but yeah.
Cool, thanks, Megan. Maggie.
I apologize. My dog is chewing on a squeaky toy right now. But I am Maggie. I'm a rising 3L. I'm currently working in a personal injury firm in Philly, and I'm really enjoying it. Sorry. I have a broad interest in everything besides criminal law, so still trying to narrow that down, but yeah.
Thanks, Maggie. And Kim?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nkem Obata. I'm a rising 2L, and after my 1L year, I kind of don't have legal interest anymore, but I'm still interested in like contracts and corporate law, and still like trying to find my way throughout the legal interest right now. A lot of things pique my interest. I'm currently working at the Delaware Department of Justice in the Family Court Division, and pretty much still trying to find my way to narrow like some of my interests down.
Great, thank you very much. Chris?
Hey everyone, Chris Oakley. I'm a rising 3L. Currently working for a judge in New Jersey Superior Court. He is in criminal. I am not interested in criminal nor family law, which I already did. Definitely not family law, but really hats off to anyone that goes into that work because it's important. My interests are something related to sports law. So there's a lot of antitrust and some bankruptcy. More on the litigation side than on the transactional side, though. Good to be here.
Thanks, Chris. Charmy?
Hi, I'm Charmy. I'm a rising 3L. Currently, I work for the Office of the New Jersey Attorney General. A lot of the work I do is employment law litigation. Definitely don't want to do that. My interest is corporate and bankruptcy.
Great, thanks. Andrew?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
What's going on, guys? Andrew Tchaikovsky, just like most everyone here, Rising 3L. Looking at the participants, I know about half of everyone here, but for anyone that I have not met yet, looking forward to meeting everyone soon. This summer, I'm at the Pennsylvania Governor's General Counsel and also working for my father's consulting firm, doing consulting services, agreements, reviewing contracts, that kind of stuff. I'd say my interests primarily revolve around probably federal securities regulations, state securities, banking, stockholder rights, that kind of stuff.
Thanks, Andrew.
Mhm.
Nick?
Hi, I'm Nick Borelli. I'm a rising 2L. This summer, I'm currently working for Vice Chancellor Paul Fioravanti on the Delaware Chancery Court as a legal intern, and I'm happy to meet all of you.
Thank you. Jacob?
Hey everyone, my name is Jacob Goldstein, also a rising 2L. Legal interests and stuff like real estate, trust, estate planning, that kind of stuff.
Thanks, Jacob. Demetrius?
Hey everybody, I'm Demetrius Davis. I'm a rising 3L. This summer, I'm working at a corporate litigation firm in Wilmington, Delaware, that we primarily focus on corporate litigation, commercial real estate, and a lot of other, I guess you could say, things that tie into that. I could say that that's probably where my legal interest lies and what I hope to do later in the future. It's nice to meet you guys.
Thanks. Katie?
Hi guys, I'm Katie Welch. I'm also a rising 3L. And like Andrew said, I've met most of you before, and if not, I'm looking forward to getting to know you. I'm working in criminal law this summer at the Public Defender's Office. And so far that's going great, but I don't want to put myself in any box right now. So my legal interest is a little bit of everything except personal injury. I've done that and I don't want to go back. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Katie. Keith?
Hey everyone, Keith Barlett here. I am a rising 2L. For this summer, I'm working in the Delaware Court of Chancery along with Nick. It's really a wonderful place. I love it there. My legal interests are corporate litigation, and that's pretty much it. So that's what I want to do. Thank you.
Matt?
Hey guys, I'm Matt. I'm a rising 3L. This summer, I'm working in a personal injury and med mal firm out in Lancaster. I'm really enjoying it and hoping to work in that field when I graduate.
Thank you. Jasmine?
Hi, my name's Jasmine. I'm a rising 2L. Right now I'm working at a firm in Philly, Marks, O'Neill, O'Brien, Dotery, and Kelly. I've had experience working in the employment law and medical malpractice departments, which I like. They do a lot of civil defense litigation, which is different from my experience prior to law school. So, yeah.
Thank you. Julia?
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Lima. I'm a rising 2L, and I currently work at the New Jersey office of the Attorney General in the finance section, but I'm kind of open to anything, but I like what I'm doing so far.
Great, thank you. Asher?
Hey everyone, I'm Asher Lovitz. I'm currently working at a firm in Philly that does mainly public contracts, construction contracts, employment law, real estate. Hoping to work in one of those areas.
Great, thank you. I have Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter Ford. I'm a rising 2L. I'm currently working at a very small local firm for personal injury in Delaware. And currently have a little bit of an interest towards criminal law, but I'm keeping an open mind. I haven't really fully decided yet. So.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. If there's anyone who's a new member that I did not catch, I think I got you all, but just please unmute and introduce yourself if I missed anyone. Okay, awesome. Then I'm going to allow our incumbent volume 47, now volume 48 members introduce themselves. We have a couple of our executive and administrative board on, so I'm just going to give them a chance. We'll start off with Dan McCready, our editor-in-chief for this volume 48.
Thank you for coming out tonight, everyone. I'm super excited to get this off and going. Welcome to the Delaware Journal of Corporate Law. Hope that you're all having a great summer, learning a lot. Maybe you're working in the area you want to. Maybe you find out what you're doing is not what you want to do. I know last year I did family law and criminal law, discovered that was not for me. I am a rising 3L. I'll go with the spiel we've been doing. Sorry to go off the tracks, but I'm working at Young Conaway this summer in Wilmington. They do a lot of different stuff that focuses primarily bankruptcy. I am in the IP department, so mostly the federal courts. That's what I want to do. I was an electrical engineer before this, so I'm a huge nerd. And yeah, if you don't know what you want to do, I wouldn't worry about it. I spent my entire 20s not knowing what the fuck I wanted to do. So don't worry about it. You know, just do your thing. Keep grinding. If you're here, you're obviously doing well. And yeah, I mean, Shira made this slide. It's all lies. Don't believe anything she says. She's not trustworthy. Yeah, I'm going to hand it off to Austin and Lauren because I know they have stuff to do and they need to get out of here. But again, thanks for coming out. And yeah, welcome to Journal.
Hey everyone, name's Austin Nigabrug. I'm the EME External Managing Editor for Volume 48. And I know some of you, so it's good to see you guys. And first off, congratulations for being here. I try to keep it humble when I'm around other student orgs, but honestly, the Delaware Journal of Corporate Law is the best student org that our school has to offer. I want to talk my shit right now a little bit. But if you don't believe me, if you don't believe me, the stats speak for themselves. And one year when I was getting my resume edited by Lauren Damiano from the Career Development Office, she even said it herself. She was like, yeah, the Journal is the flagship program at this law school. It's the cream of the crop. So you guys should be really proud for being here. Yeah, without getting into specifics, Journal gets you into rooms and interviews that you probably wouldn't otherwise get. I'm walking proof of that. I can speak from experience. And one example is for 2Ls and even 3Ls for OCIs coming up. Pretty much every person you're going to interview with from a big Delaware law firm is Journal alumni. So you have that to your advantage going into that. But I don't want to take too much of your guys' time. It's pretty a lot getting thrown at you with this sub edit process. So I just want to say have fun tonight. Thanks for being here. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll always be available to help you guys. Yeah. Oh, and please don't forget, if you haven't already, to vote on the polling if you're going to be in attendance for the Justice Trainer Alumni Spotlight event that's coming up. You should get an email from me shortly, but please do that. Thanks.
Thanks, Austin. I'll introduce myself after I allow Lauren so that I know she has things to do tonight. Oh, apparently she's not on here. What? Oh, there she is. Okay. Lauren.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to everyone. And for those of you that I've worked with before, had class with before, it's great to see you on screen. And those that I don't know yet, I'm looking forward to working with you. I am the Blue Book editor for the upcoming volume, and that means that I'm going to be one of the last people to look at your Blue Booking, all your citations for the entire issues. That also means that if you have questions, I'm a resource for you if you have questions. Most of the time you'll get things that you've seen before in legal methods, but if you come across something that you just don't know how to deal with or what to do with it, I'm here. You can always email me, and I'll put my cell in the chat as well, so you guys will have that. But yay, Blue Booking. It's not as bad as you think. I actually really like citations, so I'm here if you ever need me. Oh, and I'm sorry. I also, for OCI, I definitely got interviews with people that were journal alum. Austin mentioned it, but it is something that I also attest to. And this summer I am in DC at a general practice firm called Venable, also doing IP stuff, and that is what I'd like to do as well. Dan mentioned being an engineer before, and I was a biomedical engineer before law school. So if anyone has questions about IP, I know Dan feels the same, but we'd be happy to talk about that too.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren. Cool. I just want to introduce myself really quickly as well. My name is Shira Fryman. I'm your internal managing editor, so the one who sends you the bulk of the emails, the group me, twin messages. It's usually going to be me. So I'm going to be kind of your closest point of contact. So any issues you have, concerns, you can come to me. You can also, of course, go to Austin or Dan as well. But each of them are kind of handling different matters. Austin, as the external managing editor, has a lot on his plate, particularly in the fall, planning our Pelegi lecture, excuse me, and is working on doing a lot of the outward facing stuff with our web editor, Evan Brown. And Dan, of course, as the editor-in-chief, is selecting all of the publications, the articles for publication for the journal. So they kind of have their hands in a couple of different baskets, and my sole role is to really be a resource for all of you. So be sure to utilize that in whatever capacity is best for you. And a couple of people who couldn't make it on tonight, but just wanted to kind of make you aware of who they are. You should also have received, I called it the Facebook, where it was kind of a photo of everyone on the Volume 48 Administrative Board, or as we call it, the A Board, with a little bit about them, their legal interests, and a photo of them just so you can kind of put a name to the face. So be sure to check that out if you're interested in seeing, putting a name to a face and seeing who does what. But Marie Dixon is our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Chair, as well as our Pro Bono Chair. So she'll be handling all of the matters in that regard. And then we have 4 articles editors. So Shelby Bingaman, Derek Brandt, who will be graduating in December of 2022, James English, and Julie Jopp. And their duties are they're kind of given one article at a time to really kind of dive into and make sure that it's as good as it possibly can be before it gets to the next step of the publication process, which I'll go through in a moment. So they will provide you with individualized and personalized feedback, as well as grades for your sub-edits. The grades really are used for consideration for members for executive boards and administrative boards the following year. So if you're at Rising 3L, it's more so just to kind of know that you're doing it properly and how you can improve and in what areas you can improve. So it may have a different meaning for you depending on whether you are a Rising 2 or a Rising 3L. But we do very much so take those into account when we're considering people for a variety of different positions for the boards. And then Lauren just introduced herself as the Blue Book editor. And our web editor, like I said, is Evan Brown. He handles timing for the blog post, which I'll talk about a little bit later, manages the journal website, our different social medias. He made the graphics that were pushed out to all of you earlier a couple of days ago. So if you have any questions about, like, should I post this on LinkedIn, or is this appropriate to post on LinkedIn, things like that, he could be your go-to for that as well. And then getting to kind of your role now as staff editors. So it's a broad membership role that's critical to the success of the journal. Without all of you, the journal would not be able to succeed and thrive in the way that it does. So you have a couple of different duties. So substantive editing, or as we call it, sub-editing or sub-edits. That's kind of one of the bulk roles that you'll be doing. And we'll be going over how to do those a lot later on tonight's program. And then for the writing requirement, in order to receive a course credit and be a member of the journal, you will have to draft either a note or a comment, which ends up being about a 20-page paper that involves citations. It's in-depth legal research, writing an analysis on something that's important to you. I'll go over a lot more about the note and the comment as we get closer to it really kind of gearing up. The note and comment, if you saw in the calendar I sent out, is due on December 6th, 2022, which is a bit later than the journal usually does, but we wanted to really give more time so that you all could have consideration of when finals would be taking place and try to get that done. So December 6th is the latest that you can hand it in, but of course, any earlier is acceptable as well. But you don't have to think about or worry about that right now, which is nice. And then in the spring semester, you will draft a blog post, which is usually, I think, around 15 to 1700 words, just on again, something that interests you in the area of corporate law. So for example, I wrote my blog post about the Astroworld tragedy and wrote about how that could potentially implicate liability for Live Nation. And it was, a really interesting topic. And I share that just to kind of show you that you have really a broad range of options and things that you can write about, so long as you can really show that they have a relation to corporate law. And then just general attending meetings, events, etc., and just be actively engaged. That's really the one thing that I really ask for, is just to kind of, really be putting yourself out there and helping to build the journal to be the best that it can be, because we want to make sure that it can carry on for years to come. And that really comes with getting to know everybody and really being as actively engaged as possible. And then there's just some of the Twin page information. You should have received this info by email as well. But if you haven't already joined, please join the Twin page. The password is flagship, no spaces, capital F. And some of the different features that are on the Twin page, one of the most sought after is the outline bank, which has outlines from students from years past for all different kinds of courses. And these are past journal members who have graciously given out their outlines, because outlines have been given to them and really help them succeed and thrive. Blue book and citation tips, examples of site check forms, which I'll talk about later when I talk more about the subedit itself. This training PowerPoint will be posted as well, so no need to ferociously be writing down notes if that's what you were planning to do. And the calendar. So that is always going to be the most up-to-date calendar that we have. I'll always keep that up to date with events. Any changes will be pretty much immediately reflected. So if you're kind of asking yourself, is this an event on Saturday or on Friday, whatever, check the Twin calendar, and you'll be able to see pretty much in real time what is and is not a required event to go to.
There won't be any Saturday events.
Yeah, I don't know why I said
Saturday. I ban them. It's not going to happen.
So anyone have any questions on anything so far? Great. Okay, so this is just kind of a flow chart of the publication process, just so that you all can kind of have an understanding as to how journal works. So Dan, do you want to talk a little bit about your step, just because it's one of the most important?
Yeah, people send me articles. I have to read them. They are in various states of disrepair. I try to make them readable before I hand them to you. Most of them I reject because they miss the point. The ones that are actually on topic on corporate law that I accept, I try to get them to give me some more information so that when I hand it to you, it's in a little better shape. And then, I hand it to Shira first, then she breaks it down into the individual sub-edits, and I'll let her go over that. So she gets mean if I take her job.
Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
So after Dan has selected articles for publication, then I will assign an AE or an article editor to the article. And then I go through and break down the footnotes and assign them accordingly. So I will do my best this year to make it fair. So if, one sub-edit, you get 10 and someone else has 9, then maybe next time you'll have 9 and they'll have 10, and try to keep things proportionate to the amount of research and work that has to go into it. So I will do my best to keep it as equitable as possible, but there's only so much that I can do. So please just keep that in mind. And the rest of everything after this first arrow, really, the second arrow, you would not even have to worry about. That's kind of all the behind the scenes where the Blue Book editor has to go through and check every single citation for Blue Book compliance. And then myself and Austin, who's the EME, the external managing editor who you just met a moment ago, will conduct our reviews before sending it back to Dan, who will then send it to the author for review of the incorporated changes, and then making sure that those are acceptable to the author. Then one final look over from Dan, who will have to then do all of the formatting and all of ensuring that the compliance with the rules of the publisher are held. And then finally, it becomes published. So as you can kind of see, the reason that we wanted to kind of share this with you is to show you that, you are one person in a very long chain. So it's really important that you really do your best to ensure that it's being done properly on your end, so that we can make sure that things are easy to follow through the chain onto the next step. I apologize if you can hear my pets in the background. They seem to be fighting right now. Any questions about the publication process?
Sorry.
Dan, what did you say?
I said you all get a hard copy when it's published, by the way, of each volume.
That is true.
Congratulations. And we'll have it done before the summer, so you'll actually get them all before either you go to your job or graduate. Promises.
Yes. Any questions about the publication process? Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, sure. I have a quick question.
Yes.
What about our own students submitted stuff? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll take that one on. If you're selected for publication, you would be published in next year's edition. So if you're a 2L, that means you'd be editing it during the school year. If you're a 3L, you're going to need to sign a contract to say that you will do the edits. Otherwise, you won't get published. So we'll definitely publish 2L submissions, and then possibly 2 3Ls, depending on the how many of you actually try. That's kind of a joke, but kind of not. But yeah, I mean, you actually edit your own. I am getting published this year, so it's up to me to edit it. I don't think it's fair to shovel off my writing on all of you. So just do a good job the first time. You won't have as much to do the second time. So that's the student publication process.
Yes, and then just so you all know, the second person who's being published this volume is the external managing editor, Austin, who you again just met a moment ago. So the e-board is lucky enough to have 2 of our members being published in the coming year. So that's very exciting.
And so look, we don't decide to publish our own thing. Like, our board will decide who to publish for next year, and then we'll decide on who the next board is. So it's not, I know it looks like an inside job, but it's not as much as an inside job as it looks like.
And it's also conducted, the decisions are conducted as anonymously as possible. It is a little bit difficult with the anonymity to ensure that individuals have help with their citation and doing their research. But we do try to do that as much as possible to keep it as fair and equitable as possible.
And our faculty supervisor is very involved in helping select the papers for publication as well. And he won't have any idea who you are. Well, I mean, you're allowed to talk to him, but he won't have any idea who the paper came from.
Thanks, Dan. Any other questions about the publication process? All right. And I did get a couple of questions about class credit, so I just wanted to put this in there just to kind of take a moment to talk about it. So the non-classroom credit forms that I sent out to you all, those come directly from the law school's website. We have nothing to do with those. We just play a hand in making sure that they get to you. But just to kind of break it down, so you are eligible for a total of up to 3 credits this year, because this is the year that you're drafting a note. If you're a 2L, a rising 2L, the next year you would be eligible for a total of 2 credits, not 3. So just keep that in mind as you're kind of planning your credits. The reason that you are eligible for 3 as your first year as a journal member is because you have the potential to get 1 for fall staff, 1 for spring staff, and 1 for completing your note or comment, which fulfills the school's writing requirement. So you can apply the note credit to the fall or the spring. That's your purview, your decision. And that's something that you can, for some people, it might not matter if you're, you have 13 credits already, which makes you a full-time student because you need 12 to stay full-time. And if it's not important to you, then you can choose to have the note credit in the fall. Or if you're already taking 16 and if you're uncomfortable taking more than 16, or if it's not financially feasible for XYZ reason, then you could consider pushing that note credit into the spring. But no matter what, you will be writing your note in the fall, whether or not you get the credit in the fall or the spring. Does that make sense? Okay. So the way that you do that, in case you have not already, is fill out that form as soon as possible and send it over to Rose Callahan. She is both the Journal, Law Review, Moot Court, and Transactional Law Honor Society secretary. So she kind of handles all of the administrative ends of everything. So make sure you fill out that form and send it to her as soon as possible. And you don't need to indicate if you plan to take a spring semester credit. You will fill out a separate form in the spring. The only thing you need to fill out in terms of spring is if you plan on pushing your note credit to the spring, just kind of like write that somewhere on the sheet of paper just so that she has knowledge of that. But other than that, you don't need to fill out anything else. And if you have any questions lingering, or if you're kind of figuring out how many credits, if any, you should take, you can reach out to me personally, and I can kind of like go through your schedule with you and figure out what would be best for you. And then the other thing I do just want to point out with this is that you're eligible for a total of up to 3, but you don't have to take a single one if you don't want to. There have been semesters where I haven't taken any honor society credits for any of the honor societies I'm on. And there have also been semesters where I've decided to take multiple. So just keep that in mind. You are not mandated to take any. The reason that they give you the opportunity to take the credits is because you will be putting in a decent amount of work, and the school did decide that it's comparable to that of a class, which is why you're a 1 credit class, I suppose, which is why you are eligible to receive credits. Any questions?
Shira,
Yes.
should the 2Ls take Legal Methods 3 in the same semester that they plan to write their notes?
So I would recommend against that. There are folks who have done that, and there are those who have not. I chose to, I just completed my 2L year. So in the fall, I did not take Legal Methods 3. I focused solely on my note, which was due in, I think, mid-November, so fall semester. And then spring semester, I focused solely on my Legal Methods 3 paper. That is entirely up to you. However, based on my own personal experience and the experience I've heard from others, I would recommend against taking Legal Methods 3 during your fall semester if you are able, and pushing it to the spring. However, it is doable. People who have done it have, I think, had perhaps a more difficult time with it just because it is a lot of writing heavy material in 1 semester, but it is possible, but I would advise against it personally.
Yes, it's a no for me.
Any other questions?
Good answer.
Thanks. Came up with it myself. All right. So now we're going to start like kind of the actual training. That was kind of the intro administrative stuff, but this is kind of the bulk of what we'll be doing this evening. So the sub-edit training, just forewarning, it is a lot of information and a lot of it may be unfamiliar to you. And both Dan and myself entirely understand that, and we want to make this as easy and as seamless as possible. So if you have any questions at all, seriously, please just unmute or type in the chat, or if you feel more comfortable asking me afterwards, I'm going to stay on after the Zoom has officially ended. And if you have any questions that you want to ask me individually, I'm more than happy to answer those for you. And again, this is all going to be made available to you. We'll be sending you the reporting as well. So don't feel like you need to take notes or that you're going to miss something. If you want to, that's perfectly fine. But just don't feel as though you have to.
And if you have to add, like, we dropped the first sub edit on you and you're like, I don't remember any of this, that's fine. Just ask us questions. We get it. No problem.
Exactly. All right. So the first question, what is a sub edit? So a sub edit is really the core of your responsibilities as a staff editor on the Delaware Journal of Corporate Law. And you're going to be conducting 2 different types of editing to articles. Can you see my mouse moving or no?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the two types are above the line, or we call them ATL edits. So you'll see here, the ATL correlates to this. And the reason that it's called above the line edits is because it is literally above the line. So you'll see below the line, or the BTL, is where the footnotes take place and any other kind of irrelevant information that wasn't required to go because it's not substantive above the line. So the above the line edits that you do are really going to be minimal, if at all. But those will be directly incorporated into the article that you receive from me via email. And those will also be placed on your site check form, which I'm again going to talk about a little bit later. But for the below the line edits, you will never incorporate any kinds of changes directly into the article itself. That will only be placed on the site check form, which will make more sense when you're able to see it visually. But for right now, does anyone have any questions on what it means to be above the line versus a below the line edit?
And just as things that you're changing above the line, spelling errors, maybe like tense, plural, singular. Please don't make a bunch of style edits. If you think something needs a style edit and you really want to say something, drop a comment. But because there's so many of you, if everybody makes style edits, then I get 20 different pieces that I have to try to post. So just focus on like the big errors. If there's a name spelled wrong, if there's a word that has, that kind of stuff. Other than that, most of your sub edits above the line should be like no changes, unless I've picked a really sloppy article, and then I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. All right, so what goes into a sub edit? So it has 3 separate parts that you will submit all together. So the first part is called the source collection, or the source compilation, source comp. Those are all meaning the same thing. We kind of use them interchangeably as kind of our journal lingo. The second thing you will submit is an article that will have your incorporated edits for your footnotes. So, edits that Matt makes will not be submitted in the same thing that Megan submits. You're only going to be making those edits to your assigned footnotes. And then third is the site check form, which I know I keep saying I'm going to get to later, but it's kind of one of those things that you need to see visually to understand what it is that I'm talking about. So I will have more on that to come. And just remember that each sub edit that you complete and submit is going to have all 3 of these parts. So you'll always be submitting 3 things. I guess 3 is the magic number, if that helps you remember. But everything will be ultimately placed onto Google Drive in different Google folders. So you'll have different spaces to post everything. So it'll hopefully, jog your memory if you do forget that there is 3. Looking into the Google folder, you'll be able to see that there's 3 different places to submit 3 different things. So this is kind of the recommended order of attack. This was passed on from volume 46 to volume 47, who then passed it on to us. So this is, it's recommended. So of course, if there's a way that is more suitable for you, then this is not, required to do it in this way, but just, we think that following this 6 steps will make it easier for you to really have a successful sub-edit. So first, kind of just reading through all of the footnotes that you've been assigned and sorting them by media type. So when we say media type, we mean web page, book, newspaper, law review article, etc. And the reason that you do that is because the information that you're seeking based on what kind of media it is that you're finding is going to differ based on the type of source, as well as the information that you're going to need to retain for your source compilation. So if you just kind of like make, just a quick note in your notebook or on a post-it note somewhere, just for your own self, it'll make your job a lot easier down the line. Step 2 is actually conducting a search for the sources. Step 3 is what you need to include. Step 4, organizing your source compilation. Step 5 is going through and conducting Blue Book checks of every single citation that you've been assigned. And step 6 is to assemble your site check form. And if you follow in this order or a different order that works for you, then you will ultimately have all 3 of the required submissions for each sub-edit.
Who do they contact if they don't find a source?
You will contact me, as well as, actually, no, just reach out to me as soon as possible, and then I will coordinate with the articles editor But it'll be easier if you go to me directly to let me know. And then I can communicate that on your behalf so that everything is streamlined. And that, I believe I touch on that later. But that is why we ask that you locate or attempt to locate all of your sources within the first week after you've received a sub-edit assignment. And, you know, do your due diligence, look in as many places as you can to find it. And if you're really unable to find it, if you tell me after a week, beyond a week, then it makes it more difficult for us to kind of stay on schedule with the publication, because as you saw on the little flow chart, there are a lot of moving hands. So we want to keep things as on time as possible. So if you're able to tell me that you were not able to find a source as soon as possible, then I can make sure that that gets handled appropriately and we can stay on our timeline that we want to stay on.
But just like, if something happens and you realize on the last day that you can't just say something. Like always err towards saying something. Can't find it, even if you're like, ah, shit, I waited till the last day to do this and now I can't find two sources. That just tell us. Like, it's better for us to hear from you than find out 3 days later when the article editor's sorting through. So just try to do it week 1 or day 1 so that you know ahead of time. But as soon as you know you can't find something, say something, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So I'm just gonna kind of break through all the steps so that you kind of have a more general understanding of what I'm referring to. So step 1 was reading through all the footnotes. So we understand that particularly in like legal methods class and other legal writing classes you may have taken, footnotes might be unfamiliar. So just some footnote basics. If you already know this, I apologize. I don't mean to insult your intelligence. We just want to make sure that everyone's kind of on the same starting page. So published articles are often heavily footnoted. And the reason for that is because it establishes credibility. It, you know, shows where somebody got their information from. And typically there's about 1 page of footnotes for each page of substantive text. So that kind of shows you how important it is to always be citing your sources. And however, the text, the above the line text should make sense without having to refer to the footnotes. So what I mean by that is that everything that is below the line or is footnoted should not be substantive. It's usually like, you know, just kind of going off on a tangent, or if you want to define a word, or just citing the source that you obtain that from and including a parenthetical to explain why that was a necessary source to include. That would be what's below the line. So anything substantive should really not be found below the line. Does that make sense? Okay. So above the line, again, is all written text. So there's no in-text citations above the line for a law review piece. And all the footnotes and citations are going to be found below the line. So the purpose of footnotes, like I kind of stated earlier, is to support the asserted proposition. So that's the statement that's offered for consideration or acceptance. So something that the author is communicating, and then they are then citing or footnoting it to indicate where they received that information from. But true opinions are the one thing that are really never going to be footnoted or cited because that's coming directly from the author and they're uninfluenced by outside sources. It's kind of common to see them in some articles if it includes authors' opinions, but those that don't typically don't have them. So for example, if it said something along the lines of, you know, I think that peanut butter and jelly is the best sandwich ever. That would be that author's true opinion, and that's not something that you would be able to find a citation to, so you wouldn't cite that. And the way that you would handle that in your above the line edits is you would highlight it and then just input a comment and say, this does not need a footnote because it is the author's true opinion. And then you don't have to worry about that. Does that make sense? Okay. And we already went through what footnotes are used specifically for, so you can just review that. If you have any further questions on that, please let me know. So footnote placement, they are typically found at the end of a sentence, but they may be in the middle of a sentence if the author is looking to expand upon a statement or a word. Usually if it's defining a word that may not be commonly or generally understood. If there's a double proposition, which is where the author is kind of making two statements in one sentence that wouldn't be cited to the same footnote. And then sentences that are mixed with propositions and opinions. If there is a sentence that's mixed with a proposition and opinion, you don't want to put that footnote at the end of the sentence, because then that would indicate that you're kind of citing the entire preceding sentence to that entire statement. However, if some of it is an opinion, you want to make sure that you are not citing to an opinion, because that would be improper and just not appropriate. So I put together this little example just to kind of help you visualize footnotes. So if you saw something that said Professor Regan has been an educator at Delaware Law School for, we'll say, I don't know how long he's worked here, but 20 years. So the word educator, though it may have, a common knowledge and understanding of what an educator means, if it means something specific in this context, then the author would place a footnote and could describe down in the actual footnote if it, in this case, being an educator means somebody who is working on PowerPoints, Microsoft Excel, and has at least 50 students, something like that. And then the second footnote, at Delaware Law School for 22 years. So this, that would be a fact of how many years he's worked there. So then that would be a separate footnote saying where you've located to find that Professor Regan worked at Delaware Law School for 22 years. Does that make sense as well? Okay. So the Delaware Journal of Corporate Law, Volume 48 Handbook that I was talking about earlier, that you can access on the Twen page, has some tips and tricks on how you can search for sources. And again, the source comp should be done during the first week after you receive a sub-edit assignment. There is a little bit of wiggle room for locating sources that may be hard to find. That kind of gives you that extra time to allow me to kind of see if we can locate that source, and if not, get in contact with the author to see where they obtained it from. And we will at some point, either late in the summer or early in the semester, depending on when the library is able to do so, having a full out library training on how to locate sources, because it is a little bit different than when you're just kind of looking for cases through Westlaw or Lexis. There is, of course, more that kind of goes into this. So having the library lead that training has always been really successful in allowing folks to understand how they can go about doing so. So these are kind of the different sources that we use. The ones that are highlighted in yellow are really the most important. I think I'm slowly learning, as I'm kind of growing in my budding legal career, that Google is really a future attorney lawyer's best friend. And a lot of the questions that clients may have, or that you may have regarding a source or where you can find something, can really be found on Google. So if you're kind of struggling to find something on Westlaw and you're like, I have no idea what to do, if you just pop it into Google, it's possible that it may just populate itself and you'll be able to find it in that way. So if you're ever stuck, that's always a great place to go, or to even start. Some other places, the law library, if you want to use a dusty physical book, the law library is available to you. And then we use the interlibrary loan, which is ILL. So that isn't really that frequently used, but the librarians will go over that with you if that's something that you need to use. So if there's a book that's available at the Drexel Law Library in Philadelphia that we need, they're able to do the interlibrary loans to be able to get that book over so that it's able to be used by the journal. Just something important to note, you have to use Westlaw for journal for cases. You cannot use Lexis, so just keep that in mind. Whenever you're looking for cases, don't even think to look to Lexis. Go on Westlaw. That might change in the future, but for now, that is the rule that you are to abide by. And Hein Online is another way that you have access to searching for sources. I have a little bit more information later on in the presentation about using Hein Online if you haven't in the past. And again, the librarians are going to do a presentation to all of you on how to properly do so. But Hein Online is really kind of the go-to for law students in obtaining law review articles. It allows you to have them in full. And because you are a Delaware Law School student, you have free access to Hein Online. Any questions so far about locating sources? Great. So when it comes to actually making changes above the line, when you're doing your article edits, remember to put on track changes. That will make your life easier. It will make our lives easier. And it really allows us to see what it is that you're changing. And like Dan said, stay away from the stylistic changes, just if it's, a spelling or a grammar, or, they used a contraction when the contraction wasn't proper to be used. By keeping that in track changes, it allows us to see that what changes were made by you as opposed to what was implemented by the author, so that when it comes to grading and reaching out to folks and making sure that people are understanding properly, it just makes everyone's lives easier in that capacity. And then something that's really important to note is that one footnote does not necessarily equal one citation. So what I mean by that is that you can see on this slide, so this is right here, this where it's number 1. It is listed as footnote 1, see Joel Seligman, blah, 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 blah. And then you can see that this is a string cite because there's a semicolon and then there's a second one. But this is all encompassed in footnote 1 that this author created. And footnote 2 starts at CEG William W. Bratton, blah, blah, blah. This needs to become footnote 1.1 is going to be this first reference, the C. Joel Seligman, and footnote 1.2 is going to become what's highlighted here in red, the C. Tracy and Mr. McChesney. So just because you've been assigned one footnote doesn't mean that you're only conducting one citation analysis, if that makes sense. Does anyone have any questions on that right now? Okay. So when you walk into a situation like that, that's when you're going to be using, like I said, the 1.2. So that'll refer to footnote 1, cite 2. So if the preceding one would be foot 1.1, but if you have one that only is strictly one cite, then it's just one. You don't need to make it 1.0 or a 1.1. You should only have have it numbered by, I guess that would be tenths of a number, if there are other ones in that capacity. And then if you have to add in a footnote, use letter A through Z, but really you shouldn't be adding in footnotes if there's a proposition that has been stated that you think is not the author's opinion and needs a citation. I'd prefer you just leave in a comment that says, looks like this needs a citation, and then we can reach out to the author and get that figured out on our end. So you really shouldn't be looking for things unless it's something, super, super simple, like the sky is blue, something like that, where you know exactly where to look. But other than that, just leave a comment and let us know.
Yeah, I would say if you see a paragraph and there's like 3 sentences that seem to be stating like, something about a case, right? Like Goldstein sued Denner because Denner violated his fiduciary duty, cites to a case. The next one is like Denner's fiduciary duty violation was X, and it doesn't cite thing. And like that's probably in this case, like add a FNA there, and then on your cite check form you would say that's obvious, like Goldstein, Denner, blah blah blah. If you just can't tell where it's from, like Shira said, throw a comment in. If it's obvious that like this is from this source, I know it's from this source, then toss that on your cite check form. Otherwise, just throw a comment in there.
Does all of that make sense? Or at least as much as it can for right now.
I'm sorry, I got a little confused when Dan was talking about the comment.
Mhm.
Could you just repeat that one more time?
Sure, that's my bad. So if you're reading your article and you have footnotes, let's say 84 to 91, and in between 2 of your footnotes, there's several sentences that just aren't footnoted but seem to be making factual assertions. So they're saying something, Facebook then purchased Instagram. That's not an opinion, that's obviously a fact. So you would want to put there either like highlight part of that sentence, add a comment, and say like insert footnote here. Or if it's obvious from the context that like Facebook bought Instagram in 2009, and then like they bought it for $1 billion, and that sentence isn't footnoted, but the sentence before is, then you would say like comment, add footnote here to source before, something like that. Like if it's obvious from the context that you know where the source is, mention it in the comment. If you don't, but it's obvious that it should be footnoted, say that in the comment. Just say add footnote here. And then we'll contact the author and make them give us a source. Did I
Okay.
explain it better? Or did I?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
thank
no,
you.
you did. Thank you.
Good.
And just kind of going off of that, the best practice, if you're really unsure of something, is to reach out to me and see if it's something that I can figure out. And if it's something that, you know, you and I decide, you know, we're not going to be able to figure this out, leave this to the article editors to handle, then you'll just put in a comment. Spoke with Shira, IME. She told me it's okay to leave a comment for article editor. So if it's, you know, I don't want anyone to get crazy stressed over one single citation or one single source. That's, you know, a drop in the bucket. These are things that we can handle. So just the focus really is to get as much of it done as possible so that we can, again, move it through the chain. But if there's really something that is just not computing or we can't find, it's really not the end of the world. Just make sure you communicate that to me and I can help you out.
Yeah, that's the key point. Like, just don't spend a ton of time spinning your wheels. If you can't find something or something's strange, throw a comment and then just contact Shira, contact me so that we know. And then your job's done.
Yeah. All right, so we already went through this. We'll go to the next one. So this little photo in the bottom right corner is just kind of an example of what you will ultimately be submitting when you're submitting your article with the incorporated edits. So you can see that like the top highlighting is yellow, and then the first footnote highlighting is yellow, and then you'll see the second one is green, and then the second one down here is green. And that the reason that we do that is to kind of correlate what information above the line is being cited below the line, so that when the article editor is going through and myself, Austin, and Dan are going through, we can ensure that the proper information is being cited to the proper sources, because that is, again, the journal really prides itself on having, you know, promptness and particularity and specificity when it comes to everything. So we want to ensure that things that are being cited are actually being stated above the line, and that the proposition actually correlates to the source and they're not being kind of misconstrued or misinterpreted in any way. So that's really important to help us. So when it comes to the reason that you kind of have like the yellow, the green, and the pink is because if we just had, you know, everyone was correlating yellow for everything, then it would just be a giant block of yellow. So the color blocking is just kind of a way for us to keep everything in order. The colors really don't matter. It just needs to be different. Just don't use highlighting that's red, black, or white. It just makes it not necessarily difficult. A lot of people like to just rotate between green and yellow, but if you want to make it fun, do pinks, purples, blues, whatever, I don't care. Just don't do the red, black, or white. And again, I can't say this enough. Please, any above the line changes, they need to be made with track changes on. That makes your life easier. It makes our life easier. As soon as you open the article to really start going through things, just turn on track changes so that you don't even have to think about it, worry about it. And then this is more for Dan, but any, you know, stylistic changes that he goes through and makes adhere to the Chicago Manual of Style. That's just for you to know. You won't have anything to do with the Chicago Manual of Style. Dan is going to be handling all the stylistic changes, and then he'll delegate if he needs any help with any of that to whoever. However, as of now, that is all unfortunately falling on Dan's shoulders. So that is something that he will be doing. So that's why we really want to go through and make, what did you say, Dan?
Lieutenant Porkins will help me. It's fine.
Oh, yes. So that's why we really want to be going above and beyond to make his job a little bit easier. Any questions on that? Okay. So again, finding cases and finding different sources is all going to be touched on by the librarians, but I did want to go through this a little bit just because, like you saw in my email, the first sub-edit is going out on July 25th, which is fast approaching. And unfortunately, with the turnaround of time, there's not enough time to put together the librarian training prior to the first sub-edit going out. So unfortunately, we're not able to do that time-wise. So I did just kind of want to go through a little bit so that you would have some understanding beyond that of legal methods class. And again, if you have any questions or need help finding anything, you can reach out to any of us. And just so you know, you should have seen in the email as well, but most of the sub edits that I assign, you receive 2 weeks to complete. But given the fact that it's summer and there's so many other things going on and we're throwing X amount of information at you at one time, we're giving you 3 weeks. So just keep that in mind that, don't stress over anything. You have plenty of time, and anything that you can't find, again, just reach out to me. And just the most important thing to me is communication. So if you need help with something, just let me know. So,
Jasmine has a question.
oh,
Jasmine.
yes.
Hi, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Nope.
I feel like this is a silly question, but you said track changes, turn on track changes. Is that an actual button on like Word PDF? Because I have
Yes.
no idea what you're talking
You're
about.
no problem. I can show you. Give me 1 second to pull that up. It's a
Okay.
good question. I didn't even think of that. 1
I
second.
No
didn't
silly
know if it
question.
was like something like personally in the PDF Pen Pro like application or what.
Okay. So, oh, it's not. Hang on. Okay, so for example, I am in Word right now.
Mhm.
So if I go to review, and then there's this little square that says track changes.
Okay.
Literally all you have to do is tap it. And now it's set to view all markup. So I will be able to, so if I type in here, journal. Now my input is read and underlined automatically, so that when I send it to the next person or I submit it, they will be able to see. It's called redlining. And the reason is because it's red and it's underlined. So the next person who reads it will be able to see, oh, Shira added the word journal in because it's red and it's underlined. And if I, deleted this, just delete it like normal, then it actually has like a red line through what I deleted. And if it annoys you to kind of see your track changes while you're making changes, you can go to this little all markup toggle and you can just hit no markup. And then what I put in there, so you can see that whatever I just deleted is still gone and the word journal is still in there, but it's not, I'll be reading it how a person will be reading it that didn't have track changes on, so that it might be easier if it kind of like irritates you to see all that. But it doesn't make it go away. You just hit the little toggle again, go back to all markup, and you can see it again.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any questions about track changes?
You can do simple markup too, and it'll just show you a line on the left side of your document to show that something's been changed.
Yes, I just toggled that, and you can see the little red line, and then you can tap it to make it appear or go away. All right. Okay, so finding cases, again, we are only using Westlaw. We are not using Lexis, so don't even open Lexis, just go right into Westlaw. And when you can just type in the case name. Oftentimes, I think personally that one of the most properly cited citations that we receive from authors is cases. They usually seem to get those right, so you can usually just kind of pull it, whatever citation they input. And then in terms of your source collect, you will attach, you're going to want to download it as a PDF and then attach that PDF to either PDF Pen Pro or PDF Exchange. We'll talk about that more later, but I just wanted to kind of put that in there so you would have awareness when you're going through. The things that you'll include in your source compilation for cases are the first page of the case, any pages that are cited to, and 5 pages before and 5 pages after any pages that are cited to. So if page 5 was cited to, then you would also include pages 0 through 5 and 5 through 10. Does that make sense? Great. So when it comes to finding law review articles, this is where you're going to use Hein Online. I know personally I had never heard of or used Hein Online prior to joining Journal, so this might be new for all of you as well. But it's really easy to use. To access it, you go to the Wieden University Delaware Law School's website. The little arrows indicate something that you tap. So you're going to tap on current students, then you tap on library, then research, then Hein Online. And once you're in Hein Online, you can type the citation into the citation search bar. Or if the citation is improper or you don't have it, you can usually type in just keywords. The name of the author sometimes will even bring it up. And then I hyperlinked this to go directly to the page so that if you don't feel like having to follow all these steps, you can just click directly on the hyperlink. And again, this will be on Twen. So you'll be able to click that hyperlink as well. So when it comes to what you're including in your source compilation for law review articles, it's different from cases, which is why when we were going through step 1, I said that it's, good practice to write down what types of media and how many and which ones, so that you could kind of keep track when you're going through and collecting all the information for your source collection, so that you would know what it is that you need to retain. So for law review articles, you need the title page, the table of contents for the entire volume. So if it's, the Delaware Journal of Corporate Law, then you would include the table of contents for the Delaware Journal of Corporate Law, not, issue X. You also include the page with the copyright and publishing information. That's usually the second, maybe third page of a law review article. We just retain that information for records and for legal matters. The first page that the article that is being cited to appears on, any pages that are cited to, and similar to with the cases, 5 pages before and 5 pages after what has been cited to. And again, you're going to download them as a PDF and save that so that you can add that into your source compilation.
The caveat is if there is a quote from the law review article in the footnote, an exact quote, then you just have to get the page the quote's on and underline it in red.
That's correct. Did someone have a question as well, or was that Dan that I heard?
Yeah, I had a question about the pages. Is that PDF pages or is it, I know like law reviews and opinions have page numbers that don't necessarily correspond to PDF, like letter size pages.
So
new case pages, that's fine.
yeah, and it's if you end up with 4.5 or 5.5, the reason that we ask for 5 pages before and 5 pages after is so that we can ensure that the author is not misconstruing something and taking a sentence out of something completely out of context, because it's very easy to do that in this day and age. So we basically just need to see the information preceding and the information after to ensure that the author is not misconstruing something that the author that they're citing to is stating, if that makes sense.
It happened last year and it was a big kerfuffle.
Thanks for that, Dan. Any other questions so far? Great. All right, so this is really, I would say, infrequent. I don't know if I've ever had to use SSRN in my time on the journal.
Good for you.
What?
Good for you.
Thanks. So this is when you are finding unpublished law review articles. So all of the published law review articles you'll find on Hein Online that we just went over, and anything unpublished will be on SSRN. So to do this, you go to ssrn.com, search for the article, and you include the same pages in the source compilation as you would for a published law review article. So going back, that's the title page, the table of contents, page with copyright, the page the article appears, all pages cited to, 5 before and 5 after. So there's no difference in the kind of information that you're collecting for a published versus an unpublished law review article. The real only difference is where it is that you're going to find that, because Hein Online only includes published law review articles. And then news articles. Honestly, I usually can just find them on the internet by doing Google search. But you are also able to use ProQuest, which is a database that we have access to for free as Delaware Law School students. So you would just go to the law library website, search the full database list for the word ProQuest, hop in the database and type in whatever it is that you are looking for. I think it's easier to just save all those steps by plopping it into Google, but if you don't see it in Google or Bing or whatever search engine you use, then your next step could be to go to ProQuest, the database.
Shira.
Yes.
Bing, seriously, come on.
I don't know, duck, go, GoDaddy. We don't judge around here.
Default for saying Bing. You're in trouble.
Sorry, never again. All right, so next, finding statutes. I'm assuming that most, if not all of you, have some level of familiarity with these, either from criminal law or from, Legal Methods 1, but in case you don't. So again, we only use Westlaw, no Lexis. Sorry if you're, a Lexis kind of person. you can do that in your free time, but not for journal. We only use Westlaw. Anything that you need for help finding statutes, just like for any other piece of information, ask the law librarians. They're very beneficial. A lot of people don't ask them questions. I personally don't use them as much as I should or could, but they're an incredible resource that are always available to us, and they really want to help the journal to succeed and thrive the best that it can. And when it comes to statutes, you just type in the citation. And once you pull up the statute, you include in your source compilation the title page, the copyright of the statutory volume, the first page that the statute appears on, and any sections that are cited to. Something really important that we just want to note, because a lot of people make this mistake, is that USC, or the United States Code, and USCA, the United States Code Annotated, are not the same. It's really important to keep that distinction and be citing to USC, because USCA is kind of the more informal version. It's like if you have the federal rules of civil procedure, and then it has all those, notes and comments from, this is how this is used in practice and whatever. Citing to the USCA would be like citing to that, when you could be citing to the actual federal rules of civil procedure or the actual United States Code. So because of the fact that this is a law review publication, we want to be keeping things as formal as possible, which is why we cite to the United States Code and not the Code Annotated. My pets are currently eating my television wires, so that's lovely. Moving on, the source comp, the actual creation of the source comp. We are currently using PDF Pen Pro for our Mac users, and anyone who is not using a Mac or a PC, you use something a little bit different called PDF Exchange. You're given licensing information for your time as a journal member, and you are not to share the licensing information with anyone outside of the journal. We have no way of knowing, and that's really based off of the honor code. And that would be potentially grounds for termination, because this is something that the journal pays for and that you have exclusive access to as your membership as a journal member. So please don't share that around with anyone who's not a journal member. And then just something to keep in mind is that, oftentimes when you are reading an article, you'll see, citing to this law review article, and then you'll see id, meaning that it's the same as the preceding citation. When we do our source compilations, you have to reproduce the sources in your source comp every single time that source is cited to. So that goes for the use of id, supra, and infra citations. So you will have to include the same thing where you have the 5 pages preceding, the 5 pages after, the cited material, the copyright information, etc. So just keep that in mind. It makes your life a lot easier if you're saving things as you go, so that you can just be like, oh, all right, I already know what this is. I already have that. I don't have to worry about it. But just in terms of the actual source comp itself, you will need to include that each time something is cited. Okay, so this is kind of just to condense everything that I just went over for the past 10 minutes about what you need to include for all sources, because I know that it can kind of be hard to keep track of in your mind. And again, myself, Dan, and Austin are working on updating some worksheets for you that'll basically have all of the key tips and tricks that you need to know in order to succeed in a subedit. So all of this will be in one sheet with a lot of other information that'll be beneficial to you. So again, you don't need to write this down or memorize this. You'll have access to any notes or anything that you need when you're completing your subedits. Okay, so organizing your source comp, I'm going to go through how you do it for a Mac, and then Dan is going to review it for a PC because it is a little bit different and because it is a different program. So first, what you do is you compile all of your sources in PDF Pen Pro. So in order to do that, that's when you would go through, like I had talked about earlier, saving everything as a PDF. And then you go through in PDF Pen Pro and you highlight any cited or referenced portions. So I don't know if this is gonna work, but I'm going to try to share my PDF Pen Pro with you if it'll allow me to, so that I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay. So you should be able to still see my screen. So I just opened up PDF Pen Pro. I already had it downloaded, ready to go. And I'm going to pull up something that we used for an old subedit from last year. So this was the first one that we received. And this is kind of what PDF Pen Pro looks like. It's kind of a bear when you're first looking at it. It looks confusing, but I promise it's not as confusing as it may appear. So when we're talking about highlighting things, you can literally just hit highlight. And then if I'm trying to cite, they cited directly Red Fire in this case and causing harm to China Trust interests, highlight, done. That's what I'm looking for in terms of what I need highlighted. If it's, this whole paragraph is being cited in reference to as well, highlighted, done. So that's kind of the easy part in terms of PDF Pen Pro. Again, you're highlighting the information that is either being cited to directly, or if it's, the author has paraphrased something, or you can tell that they pulled from the verbiage in there, then you're going to highlight that so that when the article editor is going through, they kind of can see and be like, okay, I can see, visual proof that that's how the author came to that conclusion. Does that make sense so far? Okay. So for each of the subparts, you're going to be bookmarking subparts by creating a table of contents entry in PDF Pen Pro for each of your sources. So what I mean by that is, okay, so we'll say, for example, we'll use this and we will say that this is footnote 1. So the way you can do it different ways, but one of the easiest ways is you can hit edit, and then Dan, where's the table of contents? Right in front of my face.
Right there.
Entry. And then I can name this. If this is, footnote 1 that I've been assigned to, then I can name this FN1. And then boom, everything I need to access for footnote 1 is right here, nice and condensed. And like I said, there are certain things that you will need to also make note of. So for example, right here, we'll call this the table of contents. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to right click, then I'm going to click create TOC entry, which is table of contents entry, left click, and I am now going to type in FN1 TOC, meaning table of contents. And then in order to get that to apply to footnote 1, I'm going to literally grab it, stick it into footnote 1. And now I have a downward toggle for footnote 1. So when the article editor wants to go through, if they want to look at footnote 1 in its entirety, they'll click on that. If they want to be able to see the table of contents, they can see that there's that little drop down with that arrow. So they'll hit that and then they'll say, oh, footnote 1, table of contents right there. Great. Now let's say that the information that was highlighted. So here we have this information that I highlighted earlier. You do the same thing. Right click, create TOC entry. I'm going to name this FN1 cited material. Hit enter to make it save the name. I'm going to drag that up into footnote 1, and then it makes it what it calls a child, which is very cute. So now under the footnote 1 toggle, we now have the TOC. So if they click on that, it'll take them directly to the table of contents. And if they click on footnote 1 cited material, it'll take them directly to that. Does that make sense so far in terms of creating the table of contents entries? Okay. So, and then let's say, for example, if whatever this is footnote 2, then you can do create TOC entry, and then I can literally just name this FN2. And now you can see that when I pull up the toggle for footnote 1, I still have access to all that information when I have the toggle pulled down, but I can drag it up so that I don't have to see all of that information. And then clicking on FN2 will take me directly to footnote 2. And in here is where you will do what I directed you to before, where you have to, for certain ones, have to do the 5 before, the 5 after, the publishing information, all that. But again, that is dependent on what kind of media it is that you are doing the source comp for. Dan, were you going to say something?
Nope.
Okay, awesome. And then just something to keep in mind that I don't know if it's the same for PDF Exchange. Again, Dan's going to go through all of that with you. But there have been instances where PDF Pen Pro will consistently crash. So it is just kind of an older program. So just make sure that you're consistently saving your work. You can give it whatever name that you want. I usually just would name them, Fryman, that's my last name, Fryman FN. If I was assigned footnotes 1 and 2, 1 through 2, save it. And then I have it saved. You can do whatever kind of name makes it easiest for you. Just make it so that the article editor knows who it is that completed the footnotes and what footnote numbers you have. Any questions so far about PDF Pen Pro? Okay. We will go back to the PowerPoint. So footnotes that have multiple sources. So those are the ones that we went through earlier, where you have the red and the blue. Those would need to have their own individualized footnotes that would be identified as like footnote 1.1 and footnote 1.2. So in doing that, we can go back to PDF Pen Pro and I can show you here that if, footnote 1, let's say footnote, we can add this, whatever, we'll make a fake footnote. If this is FN 1.1, then I would stick footnote 1.1 in footnote 1 so that the individual can toggle it. And if this table of contents correlates to 1.1, then I can pull that and I can actually stick it into footnote 1.1. And now footnote 1.1 will have toggle pull down so that it can have its own individual table of contents and cited material. So the reason that we're doing all of this is just to make it a lot easier for the articles editor when they have to go through and find all of the information by making sure that everything is where it needs to be and is easy to find for them. Then we can streamline the process of getting through the publication. Okay. So that's what I have for Mac. So I'm going to give it over to Dan to go through for PC. Do you want me to give you screen sharing privileges? How do you, I don't know what you need.
Yeah,
Dan? Oh,
I have it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can just steal it.
great. I'll stop sharing.
So this is the PC version. Actually, before I do this, one little tip. You're going to be downloading a bunch of PDFs, right? And you're generally like getting a case. Like, let's say you're getting a case. In this case, I'm going to open a case called Goldstein versus Denner. It's 52 pages. You're not going to use all 52 pages. That would be a nightmare. So you can open it in PDF Pen Pro or PDF Exchange. You can delete the pages out, but that's horrible. Why would you want to do that? There's a much easier solution. You can instead print it, not to stand. So you don't print out to your printer. That's also not going to work. Just do Microsoft Print to PDF. Do it by pages. And let's just say you need the cover page. You need pages, comma after 1. Let's say you need something on page 15. So you need pages 10 to 20, right? And then you're going to print that. And let's just say that that's your footnote, footnote 54. Save. So that's done. Now you've cut all the pages out that you don't need. They're in there. You can then drop that into your source in PDF Pen Pro or PDF Exchange. You don't have to try to rip it out. My computer's slow, so it's taking a while to save. The best laid plans of mice and men. Anybody want to talk about existential crises as I embarrassingly sit here and my computer is okay, we're good. So let's stop sharing that. Let's share PDF Exchange. So, you'll well, fine. This was one from last year. I'd already printed it out and cut it down. This, as I was talking about earlier, this was a direct quote in a footnote, so you can see it highlighted underlined in red, and then I put my little initials there. You don't have to put your initials there. If you just highlight it and underline it in red, you're good to go. Here you will, and mine's breaking, but you will combine files into a single PDF. You'll add your files. That I do it ahead of time. I get all mine highlighted and done ahead of time because I think it's easier that way. You can do whatever you'd like. You may just put it together if you want. I think it's easier just to have all these separate files and then select them. You hold shift down and click on things, it adds them all. We're about to have another crisis because I have some memory issues right now with my computer. So it's going to fail, but it should have made the PDF. That's where we are. This software is troublesome sometimes. I am trying to get us Adobe Acrobat. If you're having software troubles, especially with this program, just do the individual PDFs. Both with PDF Pen Pro and with PDF Exchange, our software is a little older and we're getting a new license this year. If you can't put them together, if you're having the same problem I am, just do them individually and then you send them to me and I'll do it in Acrobat. The goal is to have Acrobat for everybody, but I have to get the budget approved first. So just, again, you saw the error that can happen. If that's happening, whatever, just don't worry about it. Just do the individual footnotes, sources, and then send them to me for the first. That's probably what you're gonna have to do because for whatever reason, this thing is being annoying. But yeah, that's PDF Exchange. Good luck.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions on PDF Exchange, PDF Pen Pro at this time? Okay, so any kind of issues, snafus that you run into related to Mac, come to me. Anything for PC, go to Dan, because I will not know the answer. I do not have a PC and Dan does not have a Mac. All right, so we're finally getting closer to the end. I apologize. I understand that this is a lot of information, that this is really long. I appreciate you bearing with me while we kind of wrap things up soon-ish. So step 5 is checking your citations. This is the below the line. Just important, do not use the like literally physically blue pages in the very beginning. Like that, if you can see them, don't use those of the blue book. We only use the white pages. The blue pages, they're useful for legal methods classes and other types of legal writing, but not for law review articles. So just be sure that when you're making reference to the blue book, you're always looking into the quote unquote white pages. And this is just, I'm not going to go through these, but these are just some helpful blue book rules to reference. More blue book tips can be found on the Twen page. And like I said, I'm going to be putting together a more comprehensive kind of cheat sheet for you in terms of common blue book rules that you'll need to reference and cite so that you kind of have access to them in one quick place. You don't have to be pouring through the entire blue book. But of course, don't forget that at the end of the blue book, you have your index, which is always super handy. If there's, you're like, ah, shoot, I'm looking for Kentucky citations, rules and style guides. That's the first thing that I saw when I opened this up. It tells you what page to go to. So you can also utilize that. And then again, just quick note, don't make any changes below the line directly into the article. Only do those on your site check form, which we are finally going to be getting to in a moment. When you're citing to cases, make sure that you're abbreviating properly according to table number T6. These are kind of just some basic reminders, refreshers in terms of italicization and what it is that you italicize. This is specific to law review article writing. You do not italicize the full citation of case names, but you do italicize signals, procedural phrases like in re, ex rel, things of that nature, and short form citations. So that's something that you don't use in legal methods courses because of course you've learned to fully cite, to fully italicize or underline case names. And then just for reference, we only use italicization, not underlining. So just if you're used to underlining your citations, make sure you just switch over to italics. But so that's just something to kind of keep in mind that may be different from what you've learned in your legal methods class. These are some common errors. I'm not going to go through these because you have them at your disposal. But just kind of take a look through some of the common things that people run into to make sure that you are not falling for those same traps. And then, so in footnotes, we use something that is called small caps or large caps. There are certain things that are going to be small caps. There are certain things that are going to be large caps. And I actually just learned a hack from Dan today, where if you highlight something and you want it to go into small caps, you hit Command Shift K, and it'll automatically take whatever you've already written in normal Roman typeface font, and it'll put it into the small caps. But if you have a PC, if you hit Control Shift K, then it'll do that for you, which I never knew, which is very helpful and beneficial because it can be really kind of fidgety. I'm trying to figure out the small cap situation. So life hack. So this, again, all of this is found in the Blue Book, and you'll have access to this PowerPoint. So I'm not going to run through all of this in the interest of time. But just be conscious of using small caps. We don't use all caps. Some people will end up using all caps. We're not screaming, so we're not using all caps. We're going to do the small caps to be with the Blue Book proper procedures. And then if you don't want to do the Command Shift K thing, or if it's not working for you, you can also do small caps in on Google Docs, or no, what is it called? Word, by selecting the text, hitting Format, Font, then Effects, then small caps, then OK. Or you can avoid all 5 of those steps by just doing the Command Shift K or Control Shift K. Any questions on that so far? Okay, great. Again, these are some more common errors. I'm not going to go through those in the interest of time. Make sure that proper signals are being used. A lot of common mistakes that students make is improperly ordering the introductory phrases. So if you have, a C and a C also, using those improperly, there's a certain order that you need to follow. It's Rule 1.3 in the Blue Book. So make sure that you're looking into that, because that's something that's super easy to fix, but it's also super easy to miss. And then also explanatory parentheticals. You may not have seen those in your legal methods classes. I'm not sure how in-depth professors go in terms of them, but they're certainly used often in law review articles. So familiarize yourself with them and make sure you understand how to properly do them. So that would be if, there's a cite to a case and maybe it says, see X case, and then they'll, in parentheticals, they'll state, what it is about that they're directing the reader to, just to kind of tie everything in together. And then here's some common errors. Again, this is something that you can look at on your own time whenever you have more time to do so. And then, so the use of supra and infra, I kind of just want to go over this because I think a lot of legal methods professors don't necessarily go over that, or it's more in depth, because oftentimes you will see the use of supra and infra in law review articles. So in case you have never encountered them before, supra you're using to talk about previously cited sources or portions of text, but supra you would not use for cases, because that's the point of id or a short cite. Supra is used for if you're like citing a previous footnote that talked about an article or a newspaper or something like that. There's Blue Book rules about what can and cannot be used, be cited to supra and infra, so make sure you're following that, but that's just kind of the general overlook. And then infra is for any subsequently or later cited sources or portions of text. So it can be confusing to kind of remember them, but I just think of supra as sub meaning below, so earlier. If that helps you, great. If not, then just make sure that you're following which one accords to which. Again, so these are just kind of some more Blue Booking and cite tips and tricks that you will be able to look at. Just something worth citing or worth pointing out is we have a journal specific rule where you have to use 3 ids in a row before you have to switch to a short cite. The Blue Book rule is 5, but journal specific is a 3-id rule. So that's something that is necessary to know. So you can see, for example, we have 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28 are all citing to INRAE Global Industry Technologies. And you can see they have, so there's the 3 IDs. And then even though this would technically could be an id if we were following the blue book by the book, because the journal specific rule that only allows for 3 IDs in a row, this had to have a short cite and then could return to having the IDs preceding, or sorry, after it. Does that make sense? Okay. And then these are just some common above the line errors. This is really not going to be that important, but something that is really a pet peeve for me is it's not, if your author is citing something to the Delaware Court of Chancery, it's not called the Delaware Chancery Court, it is called the Delaware Court of Chancery. And that's something that's kind of easy to miss, but particularly because we are the Delaware Journal of Corporate Law, that's a really embarrassing mistake if nobody catches that and we end up publishing in that, because that's not the name of the court. So that's just something to kind of keep your eyes peeled for if you know that you're running into an article that references in some capacity the Court of Chancery. So this is just kind of a visualization of what a site check form would look like. So I literally just screenshotted what you will be receiving on July 25th. So if you can still see my mouse, then you'll see up here, you're going to put where it says staff sub-editor, you're going to put your name. So Matthew Goldsmith. Article, you will put the full name of the article that everyone's going to be assigned the same article, but so just put the entire article name. And then the date that it's due. So if it's, I forget when it's due, but if it's due August 15th and you're submitting it August 12th, make sure you're putting in here August 15th, not the 12th, so that we can kind of keep everything in order. So kind of just going through step by step. So footnote number, here you would put, footnote 1. If there's a direct quote, then you would say, if it's an exact quote, then you would just put exact above the line. If there is no direct quote, just put NA. If there's no direct quote in greater than 50 words, again, put NA. The reason that we have this greater than 50 words kind of aspect is because that ties into block quoting. So if you're not familiar, anything that's 50 words or greater in a direct quote needs to be blocked, and that has some specific rule-booking rules that we have to follow. But if it is 49 words or less, then it does not need to be block quoted. So that's kind of why we just have you count and indicate if there's a direct quote. And then citation, if the author used a proper signal. So if they put C, but it should be a C generally, then you would put in here, no, they put C, should be C generally. And then here, the corrected text and citation, make sure that you're putting all of your changes and additions in red text so that it's easy for the article editors to see. I'm going to show you just so that it makes a little bit more sense. So here's one that I completed. It was a little bit of a different site check form because we made a couple updates for this year, but just to kind of give you an idea of what you can expect to be looking at. So when I'm talking about the red text, so this above the line for footnote 195.1, it originally said something along the lines of a more diverse board is, one or isn't one, whatever. And I made the change to add one that, and I put in red one that so that the article editor would know that I changed one that, but everything in black was the writing of the editor, or excuse me, of the author. And the same goes for below the line. So you can see that everything that it's in black is information that was already input by the author. And the only thing that I had to do was this journal of management. So, and then you can see in here the explanation. So you put every single blue book rule or table number that you used to come to your conclusion as to why this is the proper citation. So for example, you can see I put here that I removed a comma between C and EG because it was not necessary in that instance. The name of the author's name being in Roman font, title in italics, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on and on and on. And you will not have to necessarily be going through the blue book to find every single one of these every single time. because like I said, we're putting together a more comprehensive version of Common Blue Book rules and sites that you'll be looking at. So it gets to a point where you're just doing so many of them that you can just kind of start copying and pasting. Like you can see up here, I have 16.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.1, T13. And right here, I also have the same exact thing. So I literally just copy and pasted it because it was the exact same rules that were used in order for me to conclude that that was the proper citation. And the only change that you can see is for the table for T13, the periodical abbreviation was J for journal. For here, I was using North Carolina Law Review. So I talked about, NC according to T13 is for North Carolina, L for law, Rev for review. So really the purpose of the explanation portion of the site check is to show why you're saying that that is the proper Blue Book. And it also provides an indication to Lauren when she goes through and really checks every single Blue Book citation. If she kind of disagrees with you on something, if you say, no, it's found in rule 16.2 that the author's name should be in Roman font, not Calibri, then she can reference that and say, all right, that person was right, and move on to the next thing. Any questions on that? Okay, we're getting to the end, I promise. So this just actually talks about everything that I just went over, just in a little bit more detail. For above the line, if you don't make any changes, you can simply just put no change. And if you did make changes, copy and paste, and again, put any changes that you made in red text. So I just put a little example here. If the author wrote journal is so great and accidentally put a 0 instead of an O, then in the above the line corrected text citation section, I would input journal in italices because journal needs to be italicized. And I should probably highlight that in red too, so that the article editor can see that I made that change. And then so great, highlighting so that the article editor recognizes that I changed it to say so because it was improper the first time. Below the line, if there was no change, again, put no change. And if you made any changes, make sure that you just highlight them in reds for the ease of access from the article editor. And above the line, if there's no change, you don't need to explain, like why it needed a punctuation or anything, or why it had proper punctuation. You can just put no change needed. And if you did make a change, just write, put apostrophe and don't, because one was missing before. And again, for below the line for citations, you need to write out every single rule that you use that makes the citation correct, whether they were done by the author or you. We just went through that. Okay, so the bulk of everything we've gone over now. This was sent out to you by myself via email. So this is just the tentative current fall 2022, spring 2023 sub-edit and note schedule. So I just included this so that you could be privy to all of the notes, or excuse me, all of the dates that you should be writing down, or at least have cognizance of. I'll also have it, the most updated version of a schedule will always be hanging in the Delaware Journal of Corporate Law office suite, which we will show you hopefully within the first week or two of school if you haven't been there yet. It's a great place to kind of go and chat with one another. I'll be having office hours as IME if you have any questions relating to citations, things like that. But we'll get there once the school year starts. I'll tell you more about that. But just so you kind of have a general idea, July 25th, the first sub-edit is being sent out, and the first sub-edit is due on August 15th. So again, make sure that within the first week, you're looking out for all the sources once I've sent you your footnotes, so you can make sure that if there are any snafus that you run into, you can let me know and we can get those figured out as soon as possible. And what I've highlighted in red is specific to the note schedule or the comment. So by September 19th, just to keep in mind, your topic needs to be approved by me via email. A lot of you have already sent in your topics, all of the superior authorship applicants. If you plan on continuing that and making that to be your note, then your topics have already been approved, so you don't need to worry about reaching out to me again. But anyone who has not either told their topic to myself or Dan, make sure that you get that into me by September 19th. Just in terms of, we're going to talk more about the note and the comment at some point later on, and it is getting pretty late, so I don't want to continue too long, but just generally the note and comment, that just needs to have relation to corporate law. So for example, last year I wrote mine about cryptocurrency and how antitrust implications would be impacted because it's, it's kind of unknown who owns what, and a lot of it is kind of out in the matrix. So I was doing an analysis of that. So you can really do anything that's related to corporate law, but the important thing to keep in mind is that there is only allowed to be one person per topic, to give people greatest chances of being published. So get your topic in sooner rather than later. If there's something that you're considering, just reach out to me and let me know and we can chat about it. Because if you're thinking about it and you don't submit it to me and then someone else happens to submit the same idea, first in time is first in right in this case. So they would be able to write that, and unfortunately yours would not be approved. So what I'm getting at with this is just to make sure that you're getting in your ideas to me as soon as possible, and at the very latest September 19th. But again, we'll go over a lot more about the note and the comment as we get closer, but that's just something to start keeping in mind. And the due date for that is December 6th. So finally done. Questions. I know I was taking questions kind of throughout, but if anyone has any questions that they'd like to ask now, I can be here all night. So I have nothing else to do. So I'm happy to stay on as long as anybody needs me. Does anyone have any questions that they kind of want to ask for the good of the group at this time?
Yeah, I had a question about I was talking to Dan earlier with the PDF exchange. I don't know if anyone else is having the issue with the license key not being like current or valid or something like that.
I'm also having that problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting up with Rose tomorrow. As you can see, that is a software difficulty. I went through this and had everything working on Sunday, and tonight it was not. So stay tuned. If there's an issue, you should just do your site check form and we will handle source comp. Like we're having a lot of software licensing issues. Previous boards did not do what they were supposed to with those things. And so that piece of software hasn't been renewed since 2015. So that's lovely.
Okay.
Obviously not optimal, but I will let you know that this has been a lot. I'm sure you're like, oh my fucking God, what did I sign up for? Your first sub edit will be either 4 or 5 footnotes. So we're not giving you the 30 or 25. What do you have, 25 or 30 a piece last year for the first one?
Yeah, we got a lot last year for our first one, which was very overwhelming.
I'm not
We're
that much of an asshole. So you'll have 4 or 5. You'll probably have a few sentences that you're going to need to add a footnote. If you can figure out what the source is, great. If you can't, just slap a comment on there and be like, there should be a footnote here. It's not going to be, I'm not trying to give you a ton of work over the summer. Yeah, and again, please, like, the key here is communication. If obviously that software is having issues, if you have issues with PDF Pen Pro, just say something to us and we'll figure it out. Like, that's all.
That reminded me of something that I meant to tell you, and I don't think I included a thing for it. But I think, hang on a second. How do I do this? Okay, so shoot. Okay, well, I don't know where it is, but so for example, let's say that you're assigned footnotes 121 through 124, and then you see after footnote 120, there's this random sentence that says, I like reading. Just threw that in there. It is technically not the responsibility of the person who was assigned up to footnote 120. Anything that's included after the footnote that is not assigned to you, if it is not footnoted or cited to, that is your responsibility. So if you are given footnotes 121 through 124, then this sentence is your responsibility to handle. Obviously, this is someone's opinion, so you would just drop in a comment, author's opinion, likes reading. But if this was, an actual statement that needed to have an actual citation to it, that would be your responsibility. So anything that's after the footnote that comes before yours, but's not footnoted, is your responsibility. Does that make sense?